I know thousands are doing it, but here's one that got caught. And let this be a lesson for everybody else. A Mexican truck driver just got caught hauling freight from Arizona to Texas. And according to Border Patrol, that violated U.S. cabotage laws. Now the driver's visas has been revoked, the trailer was towed, and officials are warning the entire trucking industry, we are enforcing this. Finally, I've been hearing about this for years and nobody's doing anything about it. And honestly, this could end up cleaning our industry for good. Let's get into it. According to U.S. Border Patrol, the driver entered the U.S. legally with a Mexican national visitor's visa. But authorities say that the driver transported freight from Nogales, Arizona, all the way to Laredo, Texas. That's where the issue started, because under U.S. cabotage laws, foreign carriers and foreign drivers are restricted from transporting freight between 2 points in the United States. So, what are they allowed to do? Let me just explain this. A Canadian driver and or a Mexican driver have the right to come into the U.S. with their visitor visa. They can deliver a load in the U.S., they can pick up a load in the U.S., that is only destined for Canada, and or the Mexican driver can only take a load that is destined for Mexico. What has been happening over the last, I don't know, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've been hearing a lot about this and seeing it with my own eyes. There's a lot of Mexican drivers that are coming into the US, just like this story. They're picking up loads in the US and delivering them in the US, and there's a lot of Canadian companies picking up loads in the US and delivering it into the US. You can only haul back into your country. That's one thing, but taking domestic freight within the US is where it becomes illegal. Under these regulations, Border Patrol says the driver violated transportation, immigration, and customs laws. As a result, the visa was revoked, the driver was processed, and the trailer was impounded and towed. And this wasn't even an isolated incident. Officials say another Mexican driver was recently caught hauling produce from Arizona to Washington State under similar circumstances. So this looks like a random stop and more like the beginning of stricter enforcements. Now here's where this gets interesting. For the trucking industry, because cross-border freight between the US, Mexico, and Canada has exploded over the last 5 months. Manufacturing is shifting back into the US. Local production is growing. More freight is moving through Mexico and Canada than ever before. And because rates have been so bad for the last 2 years, a lot of carriers are looking for any competitive advantage that they can get. And that includes lower operating costs. And I'll give you an example how it gives the Mexican company and the Canadian company a competitive advantage. We pay our truck drivers 65 cents per mile. If you convert that into the US, today's exchange rate is $1.35. So if you take 65 cents per mile and you divide that by 1.35, that is 48 cents per mile. I don't know any companies in the US that are paying so low, 48 cents per mile. Now, if you take our labor rates to fix trucks, trailers, $175 per hour, and if you divide that by 1.35, that's $129 US per hour. Now, I don't know any OEM today that is charging so low. OEMs today are charging anywhere between $175 to $250 US per hour. So this gives the Canadian driver or the Canadian trucking company an advantage. Same thing with the Mexican, even lower their rates are. With cheaper driver pay and cheaper labor rates, obviously that gives them a competitive advantage. Now, if enforcement is going to tighten up, this is going to significantly level off the playing field. And honestly, it's gonna level off the playing field for me also, even though we are a carrier in Canada. Why? Because a lot of the smaller fleets, and I say this because it's a lot more common between the fleets that are running between 1 to 10 trucks. Sometimes you see it in the operations between 1 to 20. And I consult companies all the time, and I can see it black on white that they're doing this cabotaging. They're taking US to US loads. They're running around the US for a week or two, and then they make their way back into Canada. And I'm sure the Mexican companies, the smaller Mexican companies, a lot of them are doing it also. Now this, if you eliminate it, it's going to skyrocket the rates in the US. Not only is it going to skyrocket the rates in the US, but it levels off the playing field in Canada. Because a lot of the companies in Canada, it's hard for us, personally, ET Transport, over 100 power units, it's hard for us to compete with trucking companies that are doing this. So definitely this could create major disruption, especially in border states like Texas, Arizona, California, and maybe even across the entire North American freight. Because now carriers are going to have to ask themselves, what exactly counts as legal cross-border freight movement? Is it worth it to take the risk? And the more they crack down on it, and the more we we create awareness around it, the less and less it's going to happen. So how aggressive is enforcement about to become? Well, for years, I've been consulting smaller fleets, and I tell them it's just a matter of time. You're only gonna get away with it for a little bit of time, but they've been getting away with it for years. And Mexican carriers, they do it too, and so do Canadian carriers. But how is this affecting drivers? Well, for drivers, this could go a few different ways. On one side, some US-based drivers and carriers may actually support much stricter enforcement because your freight rates are going to start going up. And I agree with this 100%. If you get rid of all the people that are doing the cabotage or the US to US that are not supposed to, definitely the freight rates are going to go up. And I agree with this 100%, especially during a freight recession. The last 2 years were brutal, okay? The rates were extremely low. Now, I just want to be clear with the audience. We have the exact same problems here in Canada. So many people come on tourist visas, getting their AZ license overnight and becoming truck drivers, literally overnight, working either locally or within Canada. And I envy what the US is doing right now, because this is exactly what our industry needs. And honestly, the US is going to be a beacon of light for the rest of us on how to take care of these problems. Our industry definitely needs stricter rules and for people to comply with the rules. Now, let's be honest, there's a lot of truck drivers that I hear that are foreigners that don't know exactly what the rules are, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. And there's been some articles that people that are here under the LMIA program are being forced into it. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I had somebody come to me under an LMIA program working for a different trucking company. It was a much smaller company. And he told me that my dispatcher forces me to do it and says that if I don't do it, they will send me back home. And I looked at him, and I don't think that he was lying to me. I think he was very straightforward. He didn't know what to do in the situation. And, you know, honestly, I told him it's either you lose your license, your visitor visa, or you continue to comply. And I told him that you have to stop complying. And even if that means that they send you back home, but at least you're not gonna be banned from the US. So guys, there are a lot of drivers that are in this exact same situation. I'd definitely love to hear some of your feedback, both from the Canadian side and from my American friends, on what they feel about the cabotage laws. Should cabotage laws be enforced more aggressively, or is this going to create even more hurdles in our trucking industry? Love to hear some of your feedback. I'm Ronan, and I'll catch you in my next one.